All right, great. So welcome everybody to another monthly meeting for Enabling Education. Today we have a guest speaker with us. Jeff Powell will be sharing with us a little bit about the network of chapters that he has been cultivating in North Carolina, 4 universities that have banded together to support family events and community follow-up for device users. A little bit of background on Jeff. He's the founder and president of the Helping Hands Project. It's a 501c3 nonprofit volunteer organization based in North Carolina. As a biomedical engineering student at UNC in 2014, he discovered the e-NABLE network, created a device for a local child, and worked to get his peers involved. Subsequently, the Helping Hands Project was founded with the intention of being a boots-on-the-ground resource for the North Carolina Regional e-NABLE Network. Volunteers create 3D printed prosthetic devices for children and host events which bring together the limb difference community. Jeff has maintained his involvement with the Helping Hands Project over the years and is currently a 4th-year medical student and will begin his residency at Wake Forest Baptist Health in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in June. Welcome, Jeff, and glad to have you with us.
Hey there. Happy to be here. Excited to be here. And yeah, looking forward to sharing with you all today.
Great. And there's a few members of your team that are also here, which is a wonderful opportunity. So without further ado, if you want to talk to us a little bit about the Helping Hands Project and how it grew from one site to being a network between the universities and maybe some of the opportunities and challenges involved with that, that'd be super.
Absolutely. Thanks. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. I put some slides together. Oh, sorry. Maybe I should have clarified this with you before. It says disabled participant screen sharing.
Try now.
Okay. All participants.
Should be a co-host.
Okay. And we'll just go with desktop here. No. Man, you think after 2 years of being a virtual student and virtual presenter, I would have this down by now, but I apologize for the delay, everybody. It's just asking me to change my settings.
While you're getting set up, Ritesh is with us from Goa, India. Welcome, Ritesh, and congratulations on recently becoming our newest chapter in India.
Thank you so much, Ben. So really excited. So I think we just got registered right now as a new chapter, and yeah, really looking forward to it.
Great, and I know you guys are doing some really wonderful educational programs in Goa, so this will be I think a great opportunity for you guys to join.
All right, and we are back. This should work now. Okay, great. Hopefully my presentation is worth the wait. All right, so guys, so I'll just start out by saying here, well, again, thank you for having me. Thank you all for your time and attention. Just kind of like to preface things so we know what we're getting into. Planning to talk for 15 minutes or less, which is hard for me to do. I'm kind of long-winded, but that's in an effort to keep this casual and conversational, and not just have me speaking at you guys for a long time. I do have slides prepared because I think it helps to see things, but even then, I think I have this in mind as being a little less formal than a usual slide deck academic presentation, if you will. But again, I'm here to talk about the Helping Hand Project. A brief introduction to myself here. Just again, so I'm from Red Oak, North Carolina, in Eastern North Carolina, a little rural area. Went to school at UNC Chapel Hill, home of Michael Jordan, and I'm an avid Carolina basketball fan, which is part of the reason why my voice is a little gone right now, as we had a big game Saturday night. Spent some time in UNC Charlotte for a grad program. Currently about to graduate from medical school and then become an ophthalmologist here. I'm married to my wonderful wife, Laura, and there's our cat Marigold there in the middle. So just, human being like everyone else is. And so today's chat, what I had in mind, so what's in the chat? All right. What is the Helping Hand Project? How does it fit in the e-NABLE ecosystem? And what's some advice from my experience? And then why am I having this chat? One, so that we're spreading information beyond ourselves, which I think is an important thing for us to do. And then ultimately, the goal is that by doing this, I hopefully help other chapter leaders, other volunteers, other people who may be putting together or leading similar groups as ours. So the Helping Hand Project, again, 501c3 nonprofit based out of North Carolina, primarily operated through university volunteer chapters. Started at UNC, but quickly or shortly after, we had people from NC State and UNC Charlotte reaching out, taking note of what we were doing and wanting to become involved themselves. We we never wanted to, I don't know if gatekeep is the right word, but we wanted to be very inclusive and help anyone who wants to get involved to be involved and make an impact, as we have, just like the e-NABLE network was set up in a way that allowed us to jump in and build off the work of others and get involved. So we really try to have an open and inclusive structure. However, we realized that with that and with having independent chapters at different universities, it could very much benefit by having one central group, with longitudinal leadership, who can, without micromanaging, provide a little bit of guidance and direction to our individual parts, so that the sum of our work is greater than the individual pieces alone. That's why we formed the 501c3 nonprofit. While that does technically make us a business, right? A nonprofit business entity. Our board is entirely volunteer run, and we view ourselves not as a business, but as a support group. The benefits of having that 501c3, in addition to just having the centralized means of leadership and means of keeping the chapters together, is that we also get tax deductible donation status, which helps with which allows us to get some of the larger grants that we've applied for and received, which are restricted to 501c3 organizations, and that being vetted as a 501c3 nonprofit helps us. I think it helps us in making our first impressions, not only with the families we serve, but with individuals who want to get involved or want to donate. Helps them to know that we're a legitimate operation. Helps them to know that we're serious about this effort, right, in forming the organization, and helps them to know that we're fiscally responsible, and they can, if they're a donor, and they can safely donate to us. So as time has gone by, this screen currently shows our current student chapters, which not only represents chapters that are engineering based and create these 3D printed prosthetic devices, but we have chapters like Winston-Salem State University, which are focused on occupational therapy and physical therapy in creating assistive devices for patients they see in their clinic. And then a chapter here at Wake Forest School of Medicine and an affiliate chapter at Duke School of Medicine, investigating what ways we can bring in the medicine mindset, medical training into improving what we do as a whole. So just a couple numbers to date. Since delivering our first device in fall 2014, we've delivered over 55 devices to over 40 recipients. We have over 40 families in our network. We've hosted 10 in-person support events. And then we've done a couple, some bonus extra things as well, right? We've covered costs for families to attend a limb difference camp. We helped one of our recipients to be involved in a 3D printed fashion show. We've, covered costs for a parent to buy Christmas gifts for their kids. Little things like that here and there, where we try to, support the kids and families in our network beyond just delivering them a device. And so then just a very quick story of how we got here, right? So 2014, right? If you can think back 8 years ago now, e-NABLE was about a year old, was really building, had this incredible momentum online in creating these designs for 3D printed prosthetic devices. News stories breaking all over the world, wonderful pictures like this one here of kids with symbrachydactyly or other forms of limb differences receiving these hands and just being ecstatic, and their parents being hopeful for the future. And so it was, easy to understand how just about anybody who had a child with a limb difference was seeing these stories and was reaching out to try to get one of these devices for their kids. I was a junior, about to be senior engineering student at UNC, and was contacted by, through one of my professors, was contacted by a local family of a child that had symbrachydactyly and was looking to get one of these devices made for their kids. So this is Holden here, right? He'd seen his parents had seen all these e-NABLE stories. And, long story short, I kind of worked using the 3D printer that I had access to as a student to get a device to Holden by the end of the summer. And you can see, like, it's, if I'm frank, it's kind of janky. We were really struggling to learn how to use these 3D printers. We didn't have the best equipment. I was a student, doing this in my volunteer time, really committed, but, just for a variety of reasons, not necessarily getting the best results. However, when I delivered this to Holden, it was like, I made the perfect robot hand for him, right? He was just ecstatic, running around, giving people fist bumps. And his parents, who I, were a little bit concerned, might look at this device and, say, oh, this is not good. This is not a route we want to go with our kid. Said, look at his reaction. We know this isn't perfect. We know that this is a work in progress, but just the hope that this brings to us and to Holden is a really incredible thing. And so I just caught the bug then, and knowing that this was a very meaningful project, and I could operate within this greater e-NABLE network by being, my boots on the ground, taking these designs that were shared in the open source community, building them myself, and then getting them out to other kids and families. And so that's to say, my personal view, and I'm not saying this is entirely correct, but my personal view in 2014 was that e-NABLE was mostly digital. Their open source effort was phenomenal. Nothing that I could ever, try to match on my own. But at least in our region, in North Carolina and in the neighboring states, there were kind of unmet needs on the ground as families were working to, we're struggling at times to find someone who could actually turn one of these designs online into a physical device in person. And I personally felt like, even though I was, struggling with our limited equipment, my major, my biomedical engineering degree, had given me the skills to help. And being a student gives me the time to help. So I was, uniquely positioned to help out. And then other students who would be, in my position year on end would also be in position to help out. However, I was about to graduate and I didn't know, where life would take me. So I kind of viewed it, right, e-NABLE as this tree, right? They're like the tree trunk. They're this foundation, right? Creating these open source designs, creating this movement to get these devices into the hands of kids and families. And then we're just, the Helping Hand Project. If I start a group, we can be, a branch on that tree. We can be the, regional boots on the ground organization that kids and families can turn to get these devices actually realized and made in real life. I should say too, by founding a group, right, it becomes an effort that's above myself, greater than myself, and not just dependent on myself, right? If I die in a car crash in a month, right, there's other volunteer students who are involved, invested, who I've shared my experience with, who will continue to share their experience with the next year students. We'll continue to build upon the experience of the people in the past, and we can create this sufficient and sustainable organization that the kids and families we support can reliably turn to over the years, and not be abandoned just because I've moved across the state, or my personal life no longer provides me the time to be able to be involved. And so overall, with this organization, we came up, we decided the mission is going to be to support the limb difference community and educate those who wish to impact it. And that's a very important order, right? So first of all, very important order. Primarily, right, our primary mission, support the limb difference community. However, then secondary mission, educate those who wish to impact it. And that is acknowledging that by investing in and putting an intentional effort into the volunteer experience, the student experience, we can then make the process more enjoyable for our volunteers, make them more able to create good devices to help out. And that in turn is going to maximize our ability to support the limb difference community. However, it's always the number one priority is supporting the limb difference community, keeping our focus on them, not making it about us. And in that vein, with supporting the limb difference community and getting a couple of devices out and speaking with parents, I quickly I heard a common theme here, and I apologize. I'm going to be going over my 15 minutes here, but I'll keep it tight, as tight as I can. Cut me off if needed, but okay. Thank you. So in speaking with parents, a common theme was, it's been so great to see pictures of these other kids receiving devices, and I can show my son or daughter, and they can see that they're not alone. They've never met another child with a limb difference. They've never seen another child with a limb difference, but they see this other child and they see their hand and their eyes light up and seeing, oh, they have a hand like I do. So immediately I thought, if our mission is not just to make these devices and say that we get to make cool devices, but it's truly to support these families, the next helpful thing that we can do is get these families together. So we started having support events. Before the pandemic, we would have them twice a year, where we support events where we got the kids and families together, and it was, these were I think a really, really big hit, really beneficial to the kids and families, really helped us to maximize our impact. And I think, honestly, I think the support events for us personally have made the difference between us being a, one-off or a few, but they've made the difference between us being a project where we make a couple of devices and then that's it, to being a longitudinal organization where we have families that we get to know over time, that we form a relationship over time, and that we support beyond just that initial device delivery. So we're going to have another one in April. It's the first one that we've been able to have since the pandemic has prevented us from getting together. And I'm just really, really excited and really thankful that we can get these families, kids and families back together. And I talked earlier about some of the extra chapters that we do, so I'll go past this. And here, I know this is a bit of a busy slide, but I just wanted to share a kind of a range of the pictures of what we've done over the years, right? Delivering devices to kids, greatly improving our devices, the output of our devices over time, which, is 90% thanks to the open source e-NABLE network improving the designs, right? But also and that other 10% comes from us having a good structure with passing on knowledge, passing on best practices, so that we can get the most out of our 3D printers, as well as getting to know the families so that we can know what the kids like, what meets their interests, their personality, and we can create and customize the devices in ways that make it really special for the kid. So, all right. So if I can give some advice from my experience, and once we're done with this, I'm happy to stay on and, for as long as needed to talk and answer some of your questions, because there's probably some topics here that I haven't fully addressed, or some things that you were hoping for me to address that I haven't addressed about the logistics of the chapters or so on. But if I can give general advice to anyone that's leading a chapter or wanting to get involved. So one, come together often. And I mean, in person as much as possible, but at least, face to face through virtual means like this. It's really motivating. And I just think that, while it's easy sometimes to put your head down and focus on your work and get through what you have to get through, looking back, the times where we're most impactful and the times where our involvement is most rewarding is when we're taking the effort to meet together. We're taking the effort to communicate well. In line with that, it's a group effort. I think part of what has made us successful is that we always, I try, I'm not always perfect, but I try to make it's about the Helping Hand Project. It's about the group. It's not, person here or there delivered a device, or person here and there did this. It's a group effort. Now the caveat there is, right, you do want to give credit where credit is due, and thank people, praise people for what they're doing and their involvement and the time that they're giving. But at an organizational level, it's about the Helping Hand Project. It's not about an individual leader or board member or so on. Stay informed. Go to meetings like these. I admittedly could do a lot better at this lately, but keeping a finger on the pulse of other groups of the e-NABLE network goes a really long way in helping you stay current, have best practices, and meet the needs that are coming towards you. 4 is know your niche, but don't box yourself in. Know what makes you special, know what you can do well, focus on that, know what other people's niches are so that you can complement them well. again, in the act of, having the sum of the parts be, I'm butchering that expression, but the sum of the whole be better than the individual parts. But at the same time, don't think, oh, this is what we do and this is only what we do. By thinking outside of the box, you'll find some really unique ways to help the kids and families that are in your network. 5, again, kids and families are the priority. It's not about us being heroes and making these devices and showing what we can do. It's about supporting the kids and families. And in fact, part of that is understanding that for some kids and families, maybe they get one device and then they move on, or maybe they don't want a device at all. They want there's some other thing that they're looking to gain from their involvement. And it's important to stay humble and know that, again, that's okay. It's they're the priority. What you need is the priority. Priority isn't us making a device and getting them to as many kids as possible. We do want to make great devices and get them to any kid that wants them, but it's not about us forcing them on other people so we can get our numbers up or again be heroes. It's about you got to really keep the interest of the kids and families at heart, and as part of that, build personal relationships. Take the time to meet with the families, take the time to know them at a personal level, and that will go a long way in revealing those true needs, revealing those opportunities to help out, and establishing longitudinal relationships that's going to help your group maximize its impact over time. And thank you for your time and your patience, and I'm happy to discuss things further as you wish.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. And really a wonderful presentation. I don't know if you have a link to that, but I can definitely add that into the event archive.
I'll share it with you after.
Okay, that'd be great. So this will be recorded. I see Emma's comment. It's being recorded and live streamed now, and I've already added it to the event listing in the hub. I'll add that link in the chat. So when the video is finished, it'll continue to be available. Maybe this would be a great opportunity to introduce Lena and Emma and have you guys talk a little bit about your experiences with the project and what roles you've played.
Sure, I can go ahead. You caught me right as I put a snack in my mouth, though. Actually, let me turn on my video. You guys can actually see me. Oh, hello. So this is a great talk, Jeff. It's good to hear kind of some of the stuff from your level of things and your overview as well, especially as I communicate to the rest of our chapter here at Wake Forest. So thank you for that. So I've been really lucky in my whole experience with everything helping hand project and e-NABLE. I reached out to Jeff just about 2 years ago. I wasn't even at Wake Forest, and I said, what can I do to help? And he was very supportive in trying to find ways to get me involved and just help me to learn and make an impact, which is one of the best things about this whole community at large, is that, if you have a willingness and excitement about helping, people want you to help. And so it's like that keeps me motivated to keep giving back. And then I started school here back in August and started up the chapter here as well. And we're really excited not only to kind of do some of the fabrication of devices for individuals, but also because we do a lot of research here, particularly we have medical students and PhD and masters, I guess, graduate level biomedical engineers, that we all do a lot of research as a part of our degree. And so we know how to do good research. So we're kind of looking at a different avenue of right now doing satisfaction, recipient satisfaction, and looking kind of more deeply and okay, it's great that we give out these devices, but what's the long-term outcome? how are people using them? Are they continuing to use them? How effective are they? Like, are there ways that we can quantitatively measure that? How can we use our clinical knowledge to really turn it around and kind of have some good metrics for what we're doing here? Not that it's necessary, but I think it's really helpful to give some credit where credit is due in terms of what we're doing here in this network, and say, like, it's not just that these things are cool, they're really effective too. And here's the statistics on why. So I'm just glad to be a part of this community, and always be learning every email summary I get from e-NABLE, and yeah, to have the great network that we have here at Wake Forest of people who are excited. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
I'm Lena. I'm like super brand new really to the whole thing. I am a 4th year med student and planning to go into orthopedics. So I think it's a really cool project that kind of bridges, the orthopedic world with the 3D printing world. And just really grateful to Emma for kind of getting things rolling at Wake Forest, and kind of just to impact people through this. And like I said, kind of bridge and give me a little glimpse into some of the orthopedic stuff. I've done some stuff with like lower extremity prosthetics before in the past, but nothing really upper extremity, and nothing 3D printed. So I think it's kind of the future, I think, is using a lot more 3D printing, and it's just awesome to be involved in that and kind of learn a little bit about it and get to impact people.
That's awesome. And it looks like from the page that you're sharing, Jeff, there's 8 schools that are involved. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, now that I'm sharing my screen, my the toolbar moved, and I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself. But yes, yeah, 8. Admittedly, kind of at various stages of maturity, if you will, and various age, but yeah, 8 groups. And
that's great.
I think important, if I may, in line with your comments earlier about exploring ways to spread this type of model and have this model in other regions. Why this worked out so well for us when it was so successful at the start was so the first 3 chapters were UNC, NC State, and UNC Charlotte. So UNC at the time, we were making the wrist-driven devices, but hadn't gotten into the elbow-driven devices quite yet, and we're kind of struggling to carve out the time to be able to do so. UNC Charlotte happens to come along and reach out to us to want to help, specifically with an interest in the elbow-driven devices they had seen online. So we're able to bring UNC Charlotte in, we're able to share with them what they do, but instead of just saying, okay, we have, 10 wrist-driven devices that UNC is working on, we can give half of them to Charlotte, and kind of, splitting up the same amount of work, Charlotte actually gets to focus on their, entirely new niche of the elbow-driven devices. And then, we're able to add this new group in without, the existing group feeling like it's kind of cutting into their opportunities to be involved or cutting into their opportunities to help out. And it kind of helps balance and not to say that, the people at UNC at the time, weren't happy to get other people involved, but you do sometimes balance with different groups, the normal human emotions of wanting to have your things that you're doing and not have them taken away from you in the middle of doing them. And then finally, once that kind of dichotomy was set up and was going well, we had a couple of custom devices we were working on between the chapters, but they weren't really coming together quite as effectively as we had hoped for. NC State reaches out to us and they say, hey, we see what you guys are doing, largely based out of biomedical engineering. We have mechanical engineering students, electrical engineering, so on. We feel like we can offer, lend a hand with our kind of bigger range of expertise. And very naturally, they began working on these custom devices or custom designs. And so before you knew it, we had 3 individual groups all working towards the same goal, but all with their kind of naturally carved out niches. And it made it very easy to orchestrate between the groups, to divide the caseload and responsibilities between the group, and help to carve out from the start very healthy, very positive, very supportive relationships between groups. And I don't think I can understate how much of a positive impact that had in us establishing this multi-chapter model. And the lesson there is I'd encourage the same of any other groups that are looking to form a similar model or work together, is again, kind of think about what your natural strengths are and your natural interests are and what other groups may be, and find ways that you can have niches that fit together like a puzzle, and allow for the groups to have a really positive mutualistic relationship.
Great. And also really informative. I think there's a couple themes that have come up as challenging aspects of the network in the US. One being consistent follow-up, and another one being basically networking regionally. There's some parts of the world that have pretty strong national networks. Sometimes that comes with having a national healthcare system. Also, there's I just think some of these international chapters are working with hospitals and sort of have those processes built in. So to hear that you guys have been able to set that up in North Carolina among different universities, sort of organically developing strengths and contributions to the Helping Hands Network, Helping Hands Project, and slowly building in different directions, like now Wake Forest, and still having the mechanical engineering and biomedical resources is just a really inspiring model for other chapters to follow.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions, or actually, maybe as sort of a cultural perspective, it'd be great to hear from Ritesh about how their makerspace has been partnering with hospitals and with universities, and see if sort of how that correlates to this effort in the US. If you have anything to share, Ritesh.
So currently, regarding processes, we have been starting to discuss with the hospitals, but the previous time when we were actually speaking with these hospitals was because of the different projects that we were building during the COVID pandemic. So initially we started out with the basic face shields, then we developed those respirators for the doctors that filters in clean air. We had HEPA filters inside and blower, so that it's going to push ventilated air inside. So that's the other when we again had discussions with a lot of doctors. The certification was kind of an issue there because there was a lot of certification that we had to go through, a lot of things that we had to deal with, which we were not quite prepared for. And yeah, then we started developing, during the latest one, the second wave, the entire team, along with various maker spaces in India, started developing the oxygen concentrator. So we did manage to get the OSHA certificate for that. But again, in there also, it's more or less based on, because by the time we had developed the whole project, the requirement for the oxygen slightly went down, because it was kind of managed by all these mass manufacturing companies, factories, and so on. So they took over the whole thing. But yeah, we did manage to build a whole oxygen concentrator that was giving us like 90% of oxygen. No, so that's about it. We have been in talks with a lot of these hospitals, getting feedback. So yeah, getting feedback is kind of one of the issues that we have really felt when we give out these projects, right? So we want them to tell us what's wrong, and that's something that's generally missing with a lot of these projects. We build these projects, we just give it out to them. They're using it, and they're adjusting to it. They're adjusting to a lot of problems as well, which shouldn't be happening. So so like when you said follow up is a major issue. I think I kind of relate to that in the specific direction, because we don't really get to understand how the project is working, or what is the advantage of the project, or what is the where are the certain regions that we need to change the project, or we need to update the design and reiterate the design so that it suits better to the consumers. So
Really helpful. And I think it's interesting too. Ritesh and his group at Makers Asylum have been working sort of from a makerspace model, and then growing into a really comprehensive educational set of programs, and some relationships with hospitals on different projects. And because of that, they're way outside of just doing 3D printing, or just doing prosthetics. And I think with the pandemic, that was, I think, the main catalyst for his team to grow and develop a national network. It was, I think, a big challenge for a lot of chapters in the US as well, to sort of meet the moment and come up with some projects to contribute to efforts of the supply chain here, and that kind of stuff too. Jeff, have you found any challenges and dare I say adaptations or opportunities through the pandemic? How have you guys met that change?
Yeah, great question. So what impact have we had during the pandemic? To be frank, and unfortunately, as much as I would like to have some great answer about how we rose to some occasion, mostly it's just been difficult. We had some efforts into, like, early on in the pandemic, into 3D printed respirators and such, but I think found quickly those needs were met through more traditional routes pretty quickly here in the US. And again, in the name of wanting to help out when there's a good need, but we're not trying to artificially create some need so we can call ourselves heroes. We kind of backed off, excuse me, we kind of backed off of those projects as we felt we just weren't the right most appropriate ones to address them, and they were being better addressed by others. Now, in terms of our network of the limb difference community, big challenge, right? Not being able to meet in person. We missed 2 years total. So four would have been regularly scheduled support events. And that really hurt us. And John, before I continue, I think you have a question.
No, you can finish, Jeff, and then I have a question and a comment.
Okay. Yeah. Also, the students not being able, the student volunteers not being able to get together quite as much hurt us. It just takes away, it takes away from the volunteer experience. It takes away from the student experience in general by not being able to get together with your peers, learn things in person, get your hands on the devices as much. So, unfortunately, the pandemic was a hit to our overall output. The silver lining of it all is we persevered, and we did find ways to adapt to a more virtual environment, which I think will help us help our productivity and our impact in the long run. We had 2 virtual support events with virtual family gatherings online, which didn't counterintuitively didn't have as much of a reach as our in-person events do, but I think we're still very meaningful for the people that were involved, and allowed us to do something instead of entirely doing nothing. But unfortunately, it was mostly a challenge for us. I'm glad to be getting back to doing things in person, and I guess at the least, if things do change and we go back to being entirely virtual, we'll be better prepared this time.
Jeff, the theme, and you're finding that in person is really critical, and has been a huge, I have the impression, binding mechanism for your community, as well as a way of increasing the value of the service you provide, is really important. And I think that's part of your secret. But you're also now doing Zoom. And so I just want to say, I think that there are lots of chapters that haven't had the happy convergence of opportunity that you had at UNC, or frankly, the happy convergence of someone like you, who's got an organization, hands-on effect and stick-to-itiveness that has made a huge difference. So I really do want to follow up and look into the possibility that your various chapters, if you will, within your network, each with its own specialty, might think about their ability to mentor their specialty with other chapters in the e-NABLE network, and how quite possibly we could take yours, which I think are the best practices I know of in the States, and help us sort of establish a new normal for e-NABLE chapters. As I said before we started recording, we've been around for a long time. I think that your success and our, I think, sort of overall plateau in effectiveness, even as we continue, I think, to do very good work on design, are telling us something really important. And your focus on a separate 501c3, your attention to issues like succession planning and so on, are all things that we ought to see if we can't really take advantage of. In some ways, I think we've been waiting for a branch to grow into a tree in such a way that we can think about this. And so I would actually really be interested in having you talk to your chapters, to your board, to Jeremy and Ben and me, and perhaps to some of our funders, and see if we can't really think about how to shift the center of gravity towards your model, which I think would be a real shot in the arm, so to speak, for our community. That was a comment, not a question, but there you have it.
Well,
I did have a question then. So I'm not going to put you on the spot on that, but we're not going to let you just walk away from this conversation. I really think it's very timely. The question was, in the beginning of your talk, you put up a slide that said what I thought in 2014. And I knew at the beginning that you were going to follow it up with what I now know in 2022. I'm wondering if you want to comment on what you now understand that you didn't then.
Yeah, great question. So here's here's my view in 2014. I'll get the little logo up there. How has that changed in 2022? I think that well, first, how's it stayed the same? I think that while there are many things that I was wrong about, or many things I did not do perfectly, I think I did have pretty good insight in picturing how we can fit into the e-NABLE ecosystem as a whole. I think the model of us kind of accepting if we tried to do the the things that the open source e-NABLE movement does in these great big design updates and pushing the mission as a whole, we would come nowhere close. You guys do it well. I'd say the ecosystem as a whole, as it is, does a phenomenal job. However, we can focus on on where our feet are on the ground on our little patch of geography. I think that was I like to stay humble, but I'll pat myself on the back a little bit and say that I think that we made the right decision there. I will say that how things change now. There are many more groups on the ground than just us. So we're not alone in being a regional force for e-NABLE, if you will. So that has changed, which I think is very much a net positive, or absolutely a net positive, to have the digital volunteers and the physical volunteers, if you will. I do think it presents some challenges sometimes in that there's a lot of mouths to be fed, so to speak. And sometimes the efforts can be a little too disjointed.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that even internally with our group, right? Like we make additions that are great additions, but there's also sometimes growing pains, and the effectiveness of certain areas of what we do ebbs and flows, and that's just always evolving. Yes, yeah. And then other things that have changed. I think that for the impact of the e-NABLE ecosystem and the impact of our group to not just plateau, but to continue to increase and really maximize our longitudinal potential, we need to maintain this volunteer, student-driven, maker-driven spirit, but also kind of hybridize and cooperate with more traditional avenues for innovation and impact. Traditional academia,
Right.
nonprofit organizations with salaried individuals, so on and so forth, just because the benefits to the volunteer open source maker model far outweigh the benefits far outweigh the risks or the costs. But in order to patch up those risks and costs, we need to look at again hybridizing with different types of approaches and different types of mindsets, I think. And there's,
well, I think that's true. And I think another thing that's changed is that you're no longer a naive college student. You're an advanced medical student, and you have other advanced medical students on your team. And I think that opens up opportunities for collaboration that didn't exist previously. I did want to mention one other opportunity just for you all to think about, and for anyone else watching this to think about. As Ritesh and Goa come online as our first Indian chapter, they had the good sense to say that the real way to help them get kickstarted is to have someone familiar with e-NABLE and familiar with outreach to the communities in need in India to help them get organized and build the relationships and so on. And, it occurs to me that there might be a student in your network who would like to spend 6 months or something like that in beautiful, sunny, beachside Goa, India, helping to build those relationships. And I think that there will be a funded fellowship opportunity. So please spread the word on that also.
I'm going to share a quick link with Makers Asylum's work. But yeah, that's something that has come up in previous conversations that it seems like would be a great match for you guys.
and Ritesh, I'm sure there is a lot for me to learn about how you guys operate and the differences between our group and yours. But pleasure to meet you here today. I appreciate you taking the time to join in. And always know that you can reach out to me if there's some way that I may be of help, or alternatively, if you have something that you guys feel really good about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and think that we could benefit from hearing about it, I would love to hear that and see if we might learn from you a bit and adapt what we're doing.
Okay, I don't have much to say right now, but yeah, I think this was also another question that I had for Ben. I mean, is there any way we can actually communicate to each of these members apart from the forum, or should we just?
Yeah, and actually, if you don't mind, I can share your email address in the chat.
Yeah, please do.
That's something that is okay with you, Ritesh?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, great. So I've included his email in the chat, and yeah, I'd suggest, I think it's a great point that John makes. If everybody in this call wanted to follow up about a partnership, that could be a pretty exciting thing to explore. And I think great points that you mentioned, Jeff, about sort of the yin and the yang of volunteers and students engaging with formal organizations and universities and traditional research and businesses even, and how those pieces work together. We've seen this past year, students that can get internships doing e-NABLE open source projects that lead to traditional careers in some ways, and also retirees from some of those institutions being able to circle back around and finally get their hands working on things that they're passionate about in a lot of situations. So there is sort of this this full cycle of traditional and non-traditional ways of working. But great conversations today. I know that we're a couple minutes after the hour. Does anybody have any final questions? Jeff included his email in the chat. We've got a video recording from this session, so definitely feel free to asynchronously connect in the future. Anybody have any last final thoughts?
I just wanted to say, first of all, Jeff, it's a great presentation, but an even greater run that you've been doing. And good luck with your April in-person get-together. Please let us know how it goes. Send pictures. Keep us posted.
Thank you. I will. Yeah.
And thank everybody in your network. They're really a model, and they've made a real difference.
I'll pass that on. Thank you. And I'll say here too, just in case anyone is watching right now or sees this asynchronously, those family events are, they're open to, any family of a child with a limb difference or any individual with a limb difference who would like to attend, whether or not you've received a device from us or whether or not you have any other involvement with the Helping Hand Project. So if you're seeing this and you're interested, or if you're seeing this as a volunteer who's delivered a device to someone who thinks they may be interested, please share the invitation. I'll work to, I'll have to kind of double check our social media and website and pages and such, but I'll work to very quickly get that information online in public. So that people can reach out to us to RSVP and get more information if they will. And I'll share that with directly with you guys through email.
Amazing. Have you done any hybrid events? Is that something that you guys are looking at?
We have not, at least not for the community events, because they're all about like getting the kids together and having fun and going to the museums or seeing shows or that kind of thing. Right. Yeah, but we do a little bit. We do a in-person conference between chapters, and that having it be hybrid has been on our minds. So maybe that's a future discussion and a goal for next year's event.
Great. Really inspiring stuff. And thanks so much for taking the time today to join us, and definitely follow up on the hub. Anybody watching for this event and for follow-ups from Jeff and his team, anybody from those 8 chapters, it's a really wonderful network.
Thanks, everyone.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.